And if the brother Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, whose worth cannot be described by speakers, whose bounties cannot be counted by calculators, and whose claim to obedience cannot be satisfied by those who attempt to do so. Whom the height of intellectual courage cannot appreciate, and the divings of understandings cannot reach. He for whose description no limit has been laid down, no time is ordained, no duration is fixed, and no eulogy exists. He brought forth creation through his omnipotence, dispersed winds through his compassion, and made firm the shaking earth with rocks. Dear brothers and sisters, respected elders and scholars, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I'd like to extend my heartfelt condolences to all the mu'mineen, and especially the Imam of our time in these ayam. Inshallah, together we can commemorate the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah Hussein, and more importantly, with the speaker, and together we can take something away from these blessed 10, 11 nights. And I thank you all for joining us. I know it's quite late in the day, but inshallah, these are the nights in which we reflect, and these are the nights in which we elevate spiritually. Without further ado, I'd like to invite our guest, who has very kindly traveled all the way from Denmark. If you could please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين سيما الحجة بقية الله الأعظم روحي وأرواحنا له فداء ولعن الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So before discussing the topic, which is called establishing an Islamic lifestyle here in the West, it's very important that we clear up about some misconceptions, and we correct some misconceptions that we normally have when it comes to very important concepts within Islam. And that is the relation between action, knowledge, and faith. You see, because when you ask people what are the effects and the value of actions, they say actions are good, but they're the fruit of faith. So they are the result of having faith in something, right? That's what we normally believe. Or if a person, for example, who doesn't act upon the teachings of Islam, we normally say, well, maybe he has a lack of faith, for example, or it's because he doesn't have knowledge about that specific thing, therefore he doesn't act upon the teachings of Islam. And we have this, we're so obsessed when it comes to especially faith and knowledge, that a misconception occurs here. And that is, we start to belittle the value of actions, the effect of actions. So if you ask a person, what is the value of knowledge, for example, they tell you knowledge, very important, yeah? But how much, if you compare it to, for example, actions, or if you compare it to faith, for example, they say faith and knowledge are even more important. Why? Because actions are the fruit of these two concepts. Actions are the fruit of these two concepts. So when a person doesn't act upon the teachings of Islam, suddenly we start to accuse him of not having faith, not having knowledge enough. Well, you see, no, sometimes we need to regulate the behavior of a person first and foremost. This misconception that knowledge holds a greater value over, for example, actions, and the faith likewise, where do we have that from? Because when we look through the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us a command to something else. He doesn't command us to seek knowledge in that sense. Yes, knowledge, but how much knowledge? Just a small portion of knowledge, that's sufficient for us. We're not supposed to become philosophers in every aspect of life. Who said that? But when it comes to actions, إِذَا مَشَاءَ you'll find verses in the Holy Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a command where He says you have to act upon it. There's a huge difference, respected brothers and sisters. And this is what we unfortunately end up with, this common misunderstanding. So we're so obsessed when it comes to knowledge that we think that knowledge is the solution for the three things, right? So if the person doesn't act upon the teachings of Islam, you feed him with knowledge. No, give him a lesson or two. Have you read the Holy Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He compares some scholars, not average people that are not acting upon the teachings of Islam, scholars, where He compares them to donkeys and dogs? We have that in the Holy Quran. Yeah, 2 places, yeah, where He says that people that don't act upon the knowledge they have, they're like donkeys carrying around books. كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. But we have that in the Holy Quran. But when it comes to actions, we don't have anything called superficial actions or actions which is excessive, something which we don't need. No, if they're done with the conditions, obviously, with the right intention, you always see the effects of it. But you're not guaranteed to see the effects of knowledge always. Who said that? Even when it comes to your faith as well. Even when it comes to your faith. And this is the common understanding that we normally have. We think that, look, knowledge and faith has a greater impact than actions as well. I want to fall in love with something. How do I do it? I study. Who said you should study to fall in love with something? Who said that? Who said that you should, for example, believe in something or have faith in something for you to fall in love with it? Yes, it's the condition, but how much faith? How much knowledge? And then we start feeding them with knowledge and information first. We need to teach him about these things first. And then he will start act upon it. No, that's not the correct way to handle these things. And that's what you get when you become obsessed with knowledge. Then you're like, Sheikh, now I'm not going to do it. Why? Because I haven't understood every single aspect of it. You know how many times I heard that from the youth? Because I don't know of it, therefore I'm not going to act upon it. Respected brothers, when you go to a gas station, for example, you fill up your car. Bainak wa bain Allah. Do you know what the fuel does to your engine? Every detail of it? No, you just fill up your car and drive off. But subhanAllah, when it comes to the religion, shaitan is telling us something else. No, you have to become a philosopher and have a PhD in this specific field before you act upon it. Who said that? This is the waswas of shaitan. Before establishing an Islamic lifestyle, respected brothers and sisters, we need to correct some of these misunderstandings. If we ascribe greater value and think that knowledge and faith has a greater effect on human beings than their behavior and their actions, we're wrong. It all starts with our behavior first and foremost. And I'm going to mention a beautiful example from the Holy Quran about that, and which lies within the definition of a human being as well. But if we want to be like this person, and consider actions to be the steam of water reaching the boiling point, no, when it reaches 100 degrees, then I'm going to start acting. When my faith and my knowledge have reached its perfection, then I'm going to start acting upon it. Then we're going to be miserable, respected brothers and sisters. You know why? Because if we consider actions to be the fruit of knowledge and faith, when you think of a tree, when is it that it starts bearing fruit? It takes a while. So when are you supposed to act? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you so many commands. When are you going to act upon the teachings of Islam then? When? You're going to wait for 4 or 5 years before you start performing your prayer? Obviously not. And you see the narration tells us that otherwise as well. When your child is 7, are they philosophers? Children that are 7 years old? Obviously not. But Ahlul Bayt ﷺ tells us to do what?
Teach them how to pray. Slowly discipline them. Tell them to take care of their wajibat. At the age of 7. So what do they know? Nothing. Nothing. They're not philosophers. And you see, we as human beings, we're able to attach ourselves and find that love for something if we act upon it as well. Don't be like, no, I'm not going to act upon it before I know every single aspect, I know every detail, I want to fall in love with it first and foremost. No, don't be like that. You know why? Because as human beings, we're slaves of what? Our habits. As slaves of our habits, the only way we can regulate our love and attachment and even our knowledge for that sake is through regulating our habits. How do you do that? Behavior, actions. You act upon certain things, you abstain from certain things. That's why you see in a beautiful narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he says, "Awwidu anfusakum al-khair." Get used to doing good. Turn it into a habit for yourself. He doesn't say, no, go study about good deeds, and then afterwards you act upon it. No. Make it a habit for yourself. Because you as a human being, you're a slave of your habits. You're a slave of your habits. So what is the relation, respected brothers and sisters, between knowledge, faith, and actions? Actions are not the fruit of a tree. You know what actions are? It's like the leaves of a tree. What is it that the leaves of a tree does? What is the function of the leaves of the tree? They come out. They absorb oxygen and sunlight. And what happens? They strengthen the trunk of the tree. Through the oxygen and the sunlight that they absorb. The trunk of the tree is your faith. You know, because a lot of things takes some sort of a capacity for you to understand. Yeah, when it comes to knowledge, for example, a lot of things, before you even being able to understand that certain thing, you need to create that capacity. How are you going to do that? By fear mongering? Fear Allah, fear Allah, fear Allah. Obviously not. Through actions. Why you see scholars, when it comes to spiritual wayfaring, what is it that they tell us? No. You perform your wajibat first and foremost. Abstain from muharramat, and then afterwards I'm going to teach you some things. Start with that. But we stuck with the first thing. We have this mindset, and this misunderstanding, unfortunately, is so deeply rooted in our communities. Why? Because we live in a society where knowledge has been turned into an idol. Yeah? If you have a title, for example, a PhD, you're considered to be a prophet of a society. And then we think, no, I have to have a PhD in that specific field before I start acting. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he told us otherwise. He said, no, act first and foremost. Only a small portion of knowledge, that's sufficient for you to start acting. Only a small portion of faith is enough. How are you going to strengthen that faith if you don't act upon it? How are you going to do that? It's impossible. So one of the reasons why a human being is called insan in Arabic comes from the word uns as well. Uns. You know what uns means? Basically, let me give you an example, you understand the point. So imagine you going to school, for example, yeah? For 10 years, you've gone to the same school. When you come back after some years, you finish your degree, whatever, when you come back, an empty building is in front of you. There's some walls in front of you. Don't you have an attachment to this building, the walls? Why? It starts to bring up all sorts of memories for you, yeah? You found an attachment to a lifeless object because of what? You made it into a habit. Every morning, 8 o'clock, you used to go to school here. Just by the fact you passing by a wall, you know, sometimes wall is considered to be a swear word in certain languages, yeah? As I'm speaking to a wall, yani you're lifeless. But human beings are able to fall in love with a wall because of what? They turned it into a habit for themselves. Are you telling me a person who can fall in love with a lifeless object, like a building, like some bricks and a wall, he can't fall in love with Abu Abdullah alayhi salam if he gets up in the morning, every morning, and he puts his hand on his chest and he says, Sallallahu alayka ya Abu Abdullah, and he turns it into a habit for himself? If you want to fall in love with something, turn it into a habit first and foremost. We are slaves of our habits as human beings. So when a person tells you like you must be a very devout Muslim since you're praying your prayers on time, tell them, no, I'm trying to fall in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't be like, I'm going to start praying my prayers on the time when I understand the wisdom behind the prayer. I have to finish adab as-salat. I have to understand every aspect. I have to increase my faith first and foremost. No. Stop it right there. Why? Because that thing which creates a capacity for you to understand the wisdom and the philosophy behind the prayer, that's action. Be disciplined to begin with. Stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tell Allah, look, I commit a lot of sins, yeah, I'm very disrespectful towards you, but I'm disciplined about praying my prayers on time. Gradually you will fall in love with the prayer as well. Turn it into a habit with the right intention. Don't think that you will find the solution in books. That's not the case. That's why you see in the Holy Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He looks at our knowledge and our faith, what is it that He says? يَهْدِ مَن يَشَاءُ يُضِلُّ مَن يَشَاءُ. There's a possibility that I will guide you, but there's also a possibility I will misguide you. In other words, I don't give you a guarantee when He looks at our knowledge. But when it comes to our behavior and our actions and us striving, what is it that He says? وَمَنْ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لِنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. The one who strives on our path, yeah, for our sake, we will surely guide him our path, our ways. He gives you a guarantee that, look, if you do things and if you strive with the right intention, I will definitely let you see the effects of it. But when it comes to knowledge, you don't have that guarantee, respected brothers and sisters. You don't have that guarantee. And we need to be careful, because if we don't understand that the end point of knowledge and faith is not always love, then we start thinking to ourselves, look, I can't fall in love with a certain thing or certain aspect in life, therefore I have to study about it. Then we look for the solutions in the wrong place. We turn to books, for example, to find the solution. Why? You're not going to find it in the books. You find it through being disciplined enough to stand and pray your prayers on time. That's where you find it. A person came to me, he said, I want to fall in love with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. What can I do? I was like, be disciplined about reciting Ziyarah Ashura every single day. He said, no, in fact, I want to find the love for Imam Hussein so I can recite Ziyarah Ashura every single day. I said, you've done it wrong then. If you're going to wait to recite Ziyarah Ashura, how are you going to strengthen your faith then? How are you going to strengthen your love for Imam Hussein alayhi salam? I told you, it lies within the definition of a human being that we are slaves of our habits. We are attached to that which we turned into a habit as a human being. That's exactly what we're slaves of. So if every time you take a sip of water, for example, you think about Imam Hussein alayhi salam, you say, Assalamu alaikum ya Abu Abdullah, that itself would increase your faith and your love and affection for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Turn it into a habit. That's why you see a companion, he came to Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, and he asked him, he said, I can't come and visit you, Yabna Rasulillah, all the time. I live far away. He said, that's not an issue. Every time you finish your prayer, stand up, put your hand in your chest, and recite Sallallahu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. What is it that he's telling him here? After every prayer, in other words, turn it into a habit. That itself would increase your love for Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Not that you're physically close to them. No, that doesn't matter. It's above the physical dimensions here. It's above that. Turn it into a habit. That's why he alluded to the fact that he should turn it into a habit. And the same applies to children as well. Some people, they have this understanding that, look, my children, they don't understand a lot of things right now. Yeah, they don't have the capacity to understand a lot of things. So how are you going to regulate their love and attachment for certain things then? It's through behavior. That's why you see in psychology, when you're talking about the development of children, what is it that they refer to? It's playing, it's all behavior. It's all related to the behavior. All the narrations, we have the same thing. All the narrations. If you want to give sadaqat, for example, give it to your child, let them give sadaqah. So you're going to explain to them about the social political aspect of giving sadaqah, why it's important for them to help the needy and the poor. They'll understand it themselves. They'll understand it themselves. You just make sure to regulate their behavior. Let them turn it into a habit that they give out some from the wealth. Why? Because tomorrow, when they're asked to pay khums, they're not going to complain about it. They're not going to complain about it. They created the capacity to understand the concept like khums, like sadaqah, like zakat, and so on and so forth. But if you want to explain these concepts first and foremost, how are you going to explain that to a child then? You think the companion was like, no, Imam Sadiq, just wait for a second, yeah? I just have to tell the child and teach the child about the concept and the social political aspect. Just forget about it. Forget about it. That's not going to help. So respected brothers and sisters, the effects of actions, we have a guarantee from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there will always be effects of our actions if they're done with a sincere intention. But the same doesn't apply to our knowledge. The same doesn't apply to our faith either. So in order for us to strengthen our faith, strengthen our knowledge even, it is important that we act upon the knowledge we have to begin with. It starts with actions. Why? Actions strengthen your knowledge. Actions strengthens your faith. Actions creates an affection and a love for that which you act upon. It all starts to actions. It all starts to actions. That's why you see in a holy verse from the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is it that He says? Out of all the words He could use, He refers to the behavior of human beings. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Taqwa shows itself in your behavior, not in your knowledge. He could say ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ هُدًى لِلْمُتَعَلِّمِينَ. He could use all sorts of words. Those Arabic words existed back then as well. He said no, it's a guidance for who? The muttaqeen. In another verse from the Holy Quran, وَإِن تُطِيعُوهُ تَهْتَدُوا. If you want guidance, through obedience. So obedience, how does obedience manifest itself? Through our behavior, our actions. You can't sit at home and be like, I'm not going to do anything and I'm obedient. No, it shows itself in your actions and practice whether you're obedient or not. In other words, it starts with our behavior. And you see sometimes people, they take advantage of our mentality, unfortunately, yeah? This mentality where we think that knowledge and faith is a prerequisite for us to start acting, they take advantage of that mentality. How? When it comes to social political matters, what is it that they tell us? Don't take a stance. Yeah? Why? Because you don't know the political dynamics in that region. You don't know the history of that country. You don't know all the details about what's going on and all the battles and I don't know, the history, you name it. As if it takes a PhD in political science to take a stance against people killing children in Palestine. They scare people off with this mentality. They take advantage of this mentality. Yeah? So they be like, no, why are you taking a stance? Do you know about the history? Yeah? As if knowledge is required to be against children being killed. No, you just have to have a heart, that's it. You just have to be a human being with a conscience, that's enough. You don't need to be a professor within a specific field to understand it's wrong, to understand the political dynamics and so on and so forth. The country is occupied, they're killing children, that's sufficient. But they scare people off and they paralyze people, make them confused by feeding them all sorts of information and be like, because you don't know of this information, therefore you shouldn't supposed to take a stance. You shouldn't supposed to take a stance. Why are you getting involved? They're taking advantage of our mentality, respected brothers and sisters. They're taking advantage of it. In another verse from the Holy Quran, we said that if you want to strengthen your knowledge, yeah, it's through your behavior. Listen to this verse. اتقوا الله ويعلمكم الله. Have taqwa when it comes to your behavior, yeah? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will teach you. Allah becomes your teacher. You want a better teacher than that? Another hadith, verse from the Holy Quran. Spirituality. We all want spirituality, right? إِلَيْهِ يَسْعَدُ الْكَلِمُ وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحِ يَرْفَعُهُ. All goodly words ascends to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? All goodly words. But what is it that elevates us spiritually? وَعَمَلُ الصَّالِحِ يَرْفَعُهُ. It's righteous deeds that does that. Not knowledge, not faith, not anything else. It's through actions. Strength. You want strength? Listen to this hadith. مَنْ يَعْمَلْ يَزْدَدْ قُوَّةً. Strength is the condition for you to carry out your social responsibility as a Muslim. If you're seeking that, it takes some actions as well. What is the opposite? Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he states, وَمَنْ يُقَصِرْ فِي الْعَمَلْ يَزْدَدْ فَتْرًا. The one who falls short when it comes to his actions, you know what happens? He becomes weak. He becomes a weak person. He's not able to carry, or take his social responsibility or his responsibilities anymore. Strength is the condition for so many things in life. As a follower of Ahlul Bayt, as a minority within a minority, you need to be strong, or else they're going to bulldoze you completely, like your values, your ideas, your identity. How are you going to establish an Islamic lifestyle without you being strong? It's impossible. And what is the condition for us to be strong to begin with? What is that? Amal. Actions. Not knowledge, not faith. So respected brothers and sisters, how much faith do we need? How much faith is required? Just a small portion of faith, that's enough. How much knowledge is required? Just a small portion. Not more than that. Don't be like, no, I have to become a philosopher, I have to become an arif, I have to become this and that before I start acting. That's one of the most common misconceptions that we have. What about love and affection, Sheikh? Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he explains, Man amila ishtaqa. The one who acts upon something would fall in love with that certain thing. Why? Because as human beings, we're a slave of our habits. We're slaves of our habits. And Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he confirms that as well. He said, if you want to fall in love with something, act upon it. Act upon it. Tell Imam Hussein alayhi salam, I attended your Majlis. I wore a black shirt, for example. Yeah? I did it for your sake. And you've seen it yourself, you experienced it yourself, especially when we walk from Najaf to Karbala for Arba'een. How our faith is increased when we start taking a couple of steps towards Imam Hussein alayhi salam with the right intention. How suddenly our love is filled, our hearts are filled with love for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, just by the fact that you took a couple of steps. And the beautiful part is, the sweetest part of the journey is always the first couple of steps. When you walk from the Haram of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam through Wadi Salam towards Karbala. That's the most beautiful part of the whole journey, yeah? To begin with. You took a couple of steps. And subhanAllah, you're experiencing how your faith is increased and how your love for Imam Hussein alayhi salam is increased as well. A couple of steps, no more than that. You go read thousands of books, those couple of steps are more worth and effective than those books. I'll tell you that. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave us a guarantee that they will have its effect. The effects of these couple of steps would show itself. In contrast to what? Us studying thousands of books. We gave the example of scholars being compared to donkeys and dogs in the Holy Quran. No guarantee, no guarantee. But there was another person, since it's the first night, I would like to mention him as well. Because he wasn't able to do something for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Because he wasn't able to do something for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he was burning inside. He had a sincere heart and he wanted to do something, but his heart was filled with blood and the tears was falling down from his cheeks. Why? Because he wasn't able to do something for Abu Bakr alayhi salam. And who was that? There was no other than Muslim ibn Aqil. And the only thing that Muslim ibn Aqil he wanted to do for Imam Hussein alayhi salam was nothing other than telling Imam Hussein alayhi salam that don't come towards Kufa. Don't come towards Kufa. When some of these cursed individuals in Kufa, they saw that Muslim, he was shedding tears. They told Muslim, you're a grown man. You're supposed to be a warrior. Why are you shedding tears? He said, you think I'm shedding tears for my own sake? I'm shedding tears because I know Imam Hussein alayhi salam is not coming alone. I know Imam Hussein alayhi salam is coming with Sayyidina Zainab. I know Imam Hussein alayhi salam is coming towards Kufa with his children. That's why I'm shedding tears. You think I'm crying for myself? According to a narration, he was standing next to the wall of the castle in Kufa, and he kept looking towards Mecca, and he kept telling himself and saying to himself, Oh Hussein, don't come towards Kufa. Oh Hussein, don't come towards Kufa. He wasn't able to do something for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and he was burning inside. ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Thank you, Sheikh Khani, for that wonderful speech. For the safety of the Sheikh and his long life, please recite aloud Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We're now going to have a Q&A. Sheikh, if I could please invite you to the table, inshallah we can get the questions started. And if you guys could put the projector down, it's